Ready, Carl? Good evening. I will now call to order the Chesterfield Township Planning Commission meeting on June 6, 2023. I will call the roll. Mr. Miller is here. Mr. LaBelle? Here. Mr. Demink?
Here.
Mr. Leonard? Here. Mr. Renault?
Here.
Mr. Jaworski?
Here.
Mr. Klonowski? Here. Mr. Carr? Here. Mr. Brokart?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of the minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 16th, 2023. Support. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the agenda. I will make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted. Support. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Public hearings, there is none. Reviews, there is none. Comments from the floor as permitted by the commission, there is none. Non-agenda related communications, there is none. Receive and file comments regarding agenda items. We'll vote on that in a minute. Committee reports, ordinance amendments, board liaison reports, reviews and discussions from members of the commission, consultants, and township employees. Number A is Mr. O'Connor.
Dave, take a look at this. If you want to address these guys, I think you have to do it on either 7 or 8. This sort of fast. I was wondering when there was
We're supposed to be changing that, but you want to?
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. The normal protocol, as I understand it, in terms of a board member, by the way, my name is Dave Joseph. I live on Buckinghamshire, and I'm one of the township trustees with Trustee Demink. I came to the board meeting tonight specifically for one main reason. Rich and Mark came to the township board meeting last Tuesday, and they expressed some frustration and concerns about the work that's done by the Planning Commission, and that on occasion it's come to the township board with a rejection or a sort of a reversal in at least 2 instances. And the sentiment that was expressed was, we work very hard, and we have a lot of very skilled members on our commission, and we put in a ton of work. This is what I heard from you, and if I got it wrong, please correct me. But we put a lot of work in to our recommendations to the full board. And it feels like almost a dismissal of sorts when we don't approve your recommendations, or when we actually vote in the opposite. There were 2 recent cases that came to the board. One involved a mixed-use residential. And when I sat where Trustee Demink is, and I sat with Rod Arroyo and saw the mixed-use residential, I was in love with the idea. And when I visited other communities that have a mixed-use residential area, I thought that was a perfect landscape for the north end of our township. My difficulty, and I'm sure that you felt some of it during the public hearing portion of that, was residents that own property in that area came in, and when Jonathan presented, he indicated that in essence their property would be converted to the new district if they had not started construction on a commercial project, which was what the property was zoned. Without going into great detail, I listened to those residents, and I thought that in spite of my personal interest in the mixed use, that it sort of rose to the level of, and I spoke to it on that night, almost an eminent domain type of situation for these individuals. I didn't think that it was fair to just say to them, you purchased property, you've held on to property, maybe you're unable to go forward with a construction plan right now, but your future plans are. And to say that that will be changed seemed a bit unfair and not, something that I could support. I realize that people see it differently, and I wasn't trying to dismiss your deliberations and finding, but that was just where I landed on that particular issue. The other issue involved a rezoning that I thought was inconsistent with our master plan, and that was the Hickey development. And when the residents came in and talked about their awareness of being next to a residential, next to a commercial area, but that the proposed commercial rezoning would be a much heavier footprint, and that they could hear the call box from the drive-through from their backyard, I thought that was an unfair imposition, and so I was not in favor of that. Again, the appropriate communication, I suppose, is maybe through our board liaison. I don't know how to communicate with the Planning Commission when I've talked with council about coming forward and just sharing my thoughts even before. I was told by Mr. Siebert, and I respect him, that a board member coming in potentially puts you in a bad position. It is the board that ratifies, if you will, the supervisor's appointment. The supervisor makes appointments to the various commissions and boards, and that as a board member voting on that, my entry into your meeting could be seen as some kind of strong-arming or some kind of, and that, of course, isn't my intent either. So, but to have two board members come forward, and I've worked with Mark in particular, and I've heard nothing but great things about you, Rich. You definitely do your homework, and I respect that. And at the end of the review, if we see it differently, I don't go away thinking you're wrong. We just have a different opinion. I don't for a minute think that people aren't well researched and so forth. And the other reason I wanted to come forward is because we have two additional issues that are going to be coming to the board. One, Mr. LaBelle, I appreciated your call to me. You were doing your homework on another issue that was before the commission, and you were gathering more research. And I think on that particular day, you were actually headed out to Sumter Township to review a property that you thought could be something that would be in the township. I know that you've sent your recommendation, and I don't know when that will arrive at the board, but I'll tell you now, I'm a little concerned about that property because at some point, the landowner will do something with it. It's currently M1, and the proposal was to rezone to M2, and I know that there's talk of a particular business that may or may not go in there. That individual happens to be in a prime position for another issue that will be coming before the board, and that is your work on the cannabis ordinance. And a lot of work is being done by entrepreneurs around the township to look for land opportunities. And I don't like the idea of that parcel, a rather large parcel, being sold and then moves into a cannabis retail, central. That would be, by all accounts, with the existing proposed setbacks and so forth, potentially a huge area for cannabis retail. I don't think we're in an enviable position moving forward on cannabis. You were tasked with a very difficult job of bringing a recommendation forward in a very, very short time. So I expect that there may be some consideration and discussion about not only that recommendation regarding the rezoning, but also some board members who are maybe interested in seeing the measurement tool, for example, changed, or a setback from residential changed and so forth. So I know we're going to take that up in the coming weeks or month, whenever. But I didn't really feel right after the board meeting last Tuesday. There wasn't an opportunity, 2 weeks ago. There wasn't an opportunity to address those in board comments. I was a little frustrated and still frustrated with Trustee Demink and the motion to adjourn, because I think that was the opportunity for me to address you. I wanted to address you, wasn't able to. So I had to come and let you know I deeply respect your work. The Township Charter Act is pretty clear in terms of how this commission gets its power and what the power is. And in about 15 different sites, the work of the Planning Commission is referenced as a Planning Commission makes recommendations to the legislative body. We see that over and over in the article, and the recommendations are exactly that. It should never be, in my opinion, a rubber stamp of the legislative body to just take the recommendations and say, this has been fully vetted, I'm no longer obligated to do my due diligence. So I don't want you to think that a disagreement with your recommendation means a lack of respect for your work. I know that all of you put in a tremendous amount of work, whether you agree with me or not. That's not relevant. What is the work that you do, and for you to come forward and think that there was any member of our board that took for granted the work that you do, I just had to correct the record, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Not so much Trustee Demink these days, but I'll deal with him on a different issue. I think that the work you do is invaluable, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
When it came to the cannabis issue and everything going on,
Yeah.
did I keep you well informed on what was going on up here and what we were doing for M1, M2, and what the setbacks were?
Yeah, I don't have any. I don't have any.
I mean, I just want to
complaint.
make sure, you know, because I
And
thought I kept you.
I'll just say this for the record. I appreciated the way that you presented it to me, and that is from your perspective, and that you did not speak for the entire board. You were just sort of informing me, and I appreciated that very much. So I have no issues. But again, the difficulty that I have in terms of how our board communicates with your board. We had the one joint session, and then, you know, I'm probably too opinionated, but I was really itching to get back and share with you in a public way. I don't want to have any, you know, kind of behind the scenes conversation, with the exception of our board liaison, and that's how we communicate. But I really wanted to share with you some of the work that we had done on the Cannabis Committee, and the proper venue for that is elusive to me. I don't know how to do that. And when I talked to the attorney, it was like, nah, you probably don't want to do that in an official way. So I just kind of stand down. And as I understand the Township Charter Act and the Planning Commission rules, you're the board liaison. The supervisor should not be utilizing his subordinates, like our township planner or the vendors, to sort of infuse any kind of directional work. And the members of the Planning Commission wouldn't even be aware if the supervisor were to call his subordinate in and, you know, infuse his will into the process. And so that's, you know, part of the problem when we get issues. We have other board members that don't like that one elected official gets to go behind the scenes and all of us have to play by the rules. But in terms of your question, I'm very comfortable with your communication to me individually. And when I went a little too far and, you know, was offensive, I called you and I said, hey, I apologize. For the record, the issue that we had was I don't see the role of the liaison as simply being a scribe. I think they're an active member and they should deliberate. And I took you to task and probably went across the line, and I apologize for that, and you were true to your word and came back with, look, this is where I'm going and this is what I'm doing. So I'm very satisfied with that.
Because I tried to keep you and Trustee Anderson informed on
and I
everything
think you did a good job with that.
You know, informed on what this committee was doing during cannabis, where they were going. I had some dialogue when it was from M1 to M2, and the distances. I talked to Hank out there, and you and I had some phone conversation. I told, this is what they're leaning on, and are you okay with it? And you told me you were.
Yeah, I'm okay with that line of communication. And when it comes to the full board, and there are other opinions that we can talk about, obviously we can't form a quorum and have a discussion. That's for another day. And when we get to that day, if there are suggestions about setbacks, I look forward to your opinion on that. But when we arrive there, I don't want anybody on this body to think that because there may be a finding that somebody else has, that somehow it negates the work that you do, because I've worked with most of you, and I know that you take it seriously and you research it. So I'm comfortable with the communication, and just wanted to set the record tonight to let you know I appreciate you.
All right. I just want to make sure that we had that communication
100%.
during that.
100%, no
Okay.
problem.
All right. Thank you.
Before you step down, I want to have a minute as well. First off, thank you for being here. Surprised to see you, but happy to see you. And I appreciate you coming to respond to our comments at the meeting a week or so ago. I would never expect you guys to rubber stamp anything. We certainly won't over here, and I respect your position and our supervisor's position I mean, you guys were elected to do the right thing for the people, and I expect, and I know you do. So I don't expect you to rubber stamp anything this commission does. I personally look to the master plan every single time. I printed it out. I asked Jonathan a few times, oh my gosh. So I printed it out myself, I've highlighted it, I've shown people that haven't seen it before. So when Giffords Webster and the people on this commission think it's consistent with the master plan, and the people on the board don't think so, I'd love to know where that disconnect is, like for the Hickey development. You don't owe me an answer tonight, you don't owe me an answer at all. You guys, you're responsible for that. But the fundamental thing that we're here to do, in my estimation, is we have to be consistent with that master plan. So if we're not being consistent with it, I'd love to know where the disconnect is. And that way I can get better. The people here, hey, you know, Bob and Giffords Webster, they all saw the same thing. But if we miss something, I'd love to know where, because we can get better. That all said, I love it that you came tonight, so thank you for that.
Rich, just so you know, on the master plan, I know that that's the guiding instrument. It's not, and I don't want to be offensive when I say this, it's like, because I know that when you begin to make exceptions for everything, then, you know, the exception becomes the rule, and you have no real rules. So I appreciate the fidelity to the master plan. The construction of the master plan is a very difficult and lengthy, you know, process. It started, I think I was on the planning commission, and actually I think the way it went is Trustee Demink probably started it, and then I came into the board, and then Trustee Demink was back. So you're 4 to 6 years in the development of the master plan, and a lot of things change, just economic, environmental. There are a couple of parcels, and I don't want to turn this into an all-night discussion, but there are a couple of parcels that started, you know, years ago. Jonathan and I have met, and I'll just tell you, the Seton development. I think the initial approval for that was in 2005. They made an amendment, and then they made another amendment, and then the whole world turned upside down with COVID, and they came back asking for yet another amendment. Our master plan is not really able, I think, to keep up with things like that in all instances. And so in the interpretation of what is in the master plan, there are some areas that might be subjective. They're a nuanced sort of evaluation of things that I think very smart people can come away from with different opinions on. It's not a belief that you got it wrong and we got it right. I think there's not a right or a wrong. I think in a lot of instances it's just seen differently. And I don't know that there's such a strict adherence to the master plan that there can only be one interpretation. I think in most instances it's a great guiding document, but it's not infallible, and there are intelligent people that can come away from it, I think, differently. And if you left any one of my votes thinking, I wish I knew what I did wrong, then I don't feel right, because I don't want you to feel that way, because there isn't a right or a wrong, it's just a different.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a couple of quick, the mixed-use property that was referenced, my recollection was, and we always listen to the residents, you know, if they're here or we get anything from them. There was only one person that I recall that had an issue with it. We thought it was a great idea. I'm sure a lot of people in the community, elected officials, and the planning commission thought it was a great idea. In fact, there was conversation about trying to implement it along Jefferson, kind of into the Marina District. I mean, that might be 20 years. I'm probably not going to be around to see all that change, but to update Jefferson and Gratiot so that they don't look like they're from the 1950s as far as, you know, the gravel and no curbs, and they just need to be fixed up. We thought that was a great area for mixed use, and so I'm not sure if that's going to happen. The other one, the M1 to M2 property, I think that was off of Bates Road. There were numerous residents that came to the meeting that night that objected, so we listened to them loud and clear, and we felt that instead of changing that and having M1, M2 residential, all this swirling around, that it was best to keep it as it was when the master plan came out. So those were just a couple of things that that I got out of that. You know, I listened to the residents a lot. And so my reason for 26 Mile Road, I didn't think there was a big pushback. I just recollect one person, and then the M1, M2 was different. So that's where my votes came from. So appreciate you coming out. One last thing while both of you are here, because I'm not sure if Mr. Joseph is going to be leaving. I was going to bring it up tonight. One of the most popular items during the master plan open houses overwhelmingly were sidewalks, bike paths, connecting different parts of the township so that people can go out, and you can't ride on Jefferson. And I live right off of Jefferson, and it's a death wish every time you try to get your bike out there to make it over to the township to ride around here. And so I'm hoping that there's some forward motions and movements for all that to happen. I don't know if there is, but every time I go out and see people with no sidewalks, I mean, I'm still seeing them walking in the street on Gratiot, north of 23. And it's just crazy, you know, out that way. And so sidewalks and bike paths and all that, I hope there's opportunities to get that on a more fast pace so that while I can still ride a bike, I might be able to utilize some of them. So, yeah, I know, I've seen the three-wheeler. One of my neighbors got a three-wheeler. I'm not ready for that.
That's at least two references to you not being here in the foreseeable future, and I'm just going to call BS on that because I don't think you're going anywhere. But you're 100% right on the mixed use. For all of my review, when I was sitting on that side of the table, I was 100% for it. The night of the vote, there were multiple residents that came in, and my vote shifted, and I asked Jonathan that night about the ability to grandfather in existing parcels. And the reality is, and what I understood from Jonathan, if you do it that way, then the property will never become a mixed use. So that really was not feasible, as I understood Jonathan's explanation, and there were multiple members of the community who owned fairly sizable lots that felt that their property, in essence, would be altered for what the government deemed was a better use. And I didn't think that the argument was compelling enough. It was a good idea, and it was my personal wish, but when it ran headlong into what I saw as I said that night and tonight, more consistent with eminent domain, I really thought that I couldn't support it. That was also an issue that was sort of game time, because leading into that, I was very much, I liked the concept, and there was more than one resident that came forward, and property owner. I understand, and again, this wasn't a situation where I said, oh, Planning Commission blew it, because you didn't. And the Hickey Road, again, you had residents that came in where their quality of life. They acknowledged that they were living in a very close to a commercial, but the footprint was different, and the zoning change would have made a much heavier, commercial presence, and the proximity to the drive-through / gas station, or both, was very, very close, and I thought their quality of life was impacted such that I couldn't support it. And then the last thing I'll tell you, I do know the residents were very, very outspoken, and they were very engaged several years ago. And Mr. LaBelle and I spoke about this when that property was being considered for composting operations. And they were very vocal, and I know that property is basically dormant. They would like it to stay that way, and I respect that. But it's not, I don't think, realistic as water and sewer makes its way out there. Eventually, somebody's going to develop that in a way that they don't want developed. And so, as it sits now, it could be, and as I listen to the kind of cannabis chatter, it could be one of the main M1 areas in the township for cannabis licenses. And I don't think, I'm not Nostradamus, and I'm not going to predict for the residents, but I think a candid conversation, and maybe they'll show up at the board meeting when this is discussed. I'm in favor of a less impacting use in that area, and the M1 to M2, I think, even if it were done conditionally, could provide a good balance, a good fit. I don't know. We'll see when we get there and when we take it up, but it's something that I'm open to, and I think other board members are all open to as well. But however that vote goes has zero to do with any belief that the Planning Commission got it wrong, and you'll never hear me say that. And if anything, there's just a different view. And for a board member to be driving out, to look at property and try to understand what could be and what couldn't be is a testament to the work that you guys put in. So I appreciate it. Sorry, sidewalks. The issue that I have with sidewalks, I think as a township board, and this is just one person's opinion, if we're going to be serious about it, let's make an investment in sidewalks. I don't like this sidewalk replacement program where we talk to residents about the importance of sound construction and sidewalks in front of their property, while township property has residents walking in the street or riding their bikes in the street. I think it's a hypocritical message. And I also don't like the 25% administrative fee that's tacked on to every slab that's poured. And so my direction and my wish is that we make an investment in bike paths and not do it in piecework, that we maybe take a sizable chunk in the millions from the ARPA fund and give the residents what we've known them to ask for repeatedly, which are bike paths and walking paths, safe, non-motorized paths. I think we should take it up in a serious discussion, not just these, patchwork quilt kind of ways. So I'm 100% with you. I just, I would like to be more aggressive with how we do it.
And I know there's challenges to that, pooling the money and everything else, implementing some of them. Connecting Cotton Road between Jefferson and Gratiot is a perfect example that there's no way to really get up there. There's some sidewalks here and there, but there's limited space. So the more, the better.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the residents will ever, their request for that will ever diminish. I think it gets more and more traction as the young families come in with kids. And unless you're in a subdivision, a new subdivision, you might not have sidewalks or be able to get around. So,
well, Carl, I'm in 100% agreement with you. I sit on a board. We talk about sidewalk connectivity, and you could go from this building to the Veterans Memorial, and you're going to be walking. You're going to take your life in your hands to walk along Sugar Bush. So having a sidewalk from this building or a bike path from this building, but if you have a board member that sits on this board, township board, that doesn't want to put a sidewalk in front of their house, when do we start talk about connectivity anymore? When do we have that conversation? Because I've been very pissed and said from that side of the table, if board members don't have sidewalks in front of their house, why are you imposing sidewalk replacement? You know, so I know we're going to get askew here, and I'll be here all night, and you guys will never get out of here, but I feel very deeply, strongly about these, and I'll keep hacking away. But I agree with you, and I agree with the residents. We need connectivity, we need bike paths, and we need safe walking paths.
I appreciate that, and I just, with Brian here too, having two of you bring that message forward, that would be great, because it was overwhelming, and I don't know if we were a little surprised when we had those open houses, but yeah, I mean, it was overwhelming, so hopefully.
Message received.
Hopefully we can see some things change sooner than later. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Joseph. Mr. O'Connor, we'll go back to number 10. See ya.
Good evening. I'm Mitch O'Connor, Township Engineer, and I'm going to give a brief presentation on the sanitary sewer master plan update, but I do want it to be informative, so if you have a question, please stop and ask, okay? The first slide, I kind of want to give a big picture of where we fit in with the Macomb County. Our contract is with Macomb County Wastewater District. So we pay Macomb County to transport our sewage. On this slide, which is kind of the middle third of Macomb County, we're off to the right there. That purple bluish sewer is basically on I-94. That is our outlet for all our township sewer. It goes to the county sewer. And then Jonathan, if you could kind of zoom out a little bit. And then our sewage flows south through Harrison and Clinton Township to 15 Mile Road, then it heads west, and then south into Detroit. So if there's a sinkhole on 15 Mile Road, which there was, that is our sewage, so we do end up paying for that repair. So that, again, that is the big picture. We actually, within our contract with Macomb County, there is a capacity limit. It's 40 CFS. That's our contract amount, which isn't a concern. If we're fully developed, we'll still probably be less than 40 CFS. So that's not a concern, but it is worth mentioning. Okay, second slide. This is our current master plan. And again, I apologize, these are hard to read. This master plan was, this update was started in 2015. The township got a SAW grant, which was a grant from the state. It was completed in 2017. If you could zoom in maybe one time, Jonathan. So the blue areas are existing sewers. So you can see the township is probably over half sewered. And then the red lines are proposed sewers. And I'm sure you all know this, but the northeast and the northwest are the general areas which are not sewered right now. So with this master plan, which was completed in 2017, it did present a couple issues. It acknowledged some pinch points down by 21 Mile Road where we connect into the sewer, which would eventually have to be upsized and replaced, which is very expensive. And it also had a problem in Section 18, which is the old Scallywags golf course. This master plan called for a pump station and then a force main jumping over to Gratiot to outlet, which is basically unbuildable. You're building a pump station and you're passing existing sewered areas to get to your outlet. So that's why it was unfeasible for that area to develop. So the two things that triggered us revising the master plan were Scallywags submitted a request, is there any other way we can do this? And then the zoning master plan was updated. So those two factors kind of made us, which is a healthy exercise anyways, made us kind of review the current master plan and what we can do to make it better. So if we can go to the next slide. And we have 3 connection points to the Macomb County sewer. There's 2 down at 21 and I-94, which handles the pink half and then the green half. They both come down to 21 and I-94 and connect at 2 different meters down there. And then north at like 25 and a half in Gratiot, there's another connection point where the township discharges into the county sewer. So under the 2017 master plan, this was the current areas that flow to those 3 different connections. And I do want you, there are bold lines there. There's one on Sugar Bush. There's one down at 21 and I-94. Those represent the potential pinch points that if the township fully developed, those sewers would be undersized and you would have to either build a bigger sewer or a parallel sewer, which again is expensive and somewhat frustrating. So that's the 2017 master plan. We went through the revisions. If you can go to the current one. So this is the one we're proposing tonight. And the biggest difference is we increased the size of Area 3, which dumps in at 25 and a half in Gratiot. And we decreased the 21 and I-94, I don't know if that's light green, that area. And we also, because of Scallywags, set some flow meters in some downstream sewers of Scallywags and determined that there is capacity directly south of Scallywags in E. Russell Schmidt, the sewers there. We dropped meters in those sewers and determined that they can flow directly south, which eliminates the pump station crossing the railroad tracks and going over to Gratiot. So now that development became basically feasible now because there is an outlet that they can get to. The other significant thing is when we went through this revision, we compared the actual flow meter data at our 3 connections the county provided us with the theoretical flow that should have been generated for this population. And the theoretical flow is each person generates or uses 100 gallons per day. That's what all the sewers were sized on, a consumption of 100 gallons per day, and then we put a peaking factor on it. What we found is people don't use that much water anymore. They use about 65 to 70 gallons per day. And that, it basically made those future pinch points kind of just go away. And we got the DEQ to acknowledge they're going to accept our master plan with these actual flow rates. Any future sewers still have to be designed with 100 gallons per day per each person. But it's kind of a big win to get the DEQ, it's not DEQ anymore, it's Eagle. It's kind of a big win to get Eagle to kind of acknowledge and change something. So the master,
So you're saying by going to this revised geographically, you make the 3 sections smaller so that the pinch point at 21 and Gratiot for that feeds areas 1 and 2, you're saying those now will no longer be pinch points?
yeah, the
So what are
light
the-
green, is that CHS 1, the light green area?
Light green 1.
That
and
got
then
smaller.
Pink is 2. Yeah, no, I saw that they got smaller and I saw 3 got bigger, and that's to alleviate the pinch points where
Yes.
where they tie into the main.
Yes.
That runs south.
Yes.
To 15 Mile Road, then west to.
Yes.
Where it then goes south to Detroit. So what size is the main that runs south that we tie into?
The existing sewer is, it's 60 inch at I-94 and 21 Mile Road.
So it's 60 inches that runs south. What are the 2 tie-ins that come from?
We have a 54-inch connection that comes in from the east.
Yeah, so that services area 2. And then what size is the one
Yeah,
that
and I
serves?
should be, no, is CHS 1 the pink area?
So pink is 2 and green is 1. So coming in from the east, which would be pink, which is 2, that's 54 inch.
Yes, there's
What
a
size
54
is
inch on
What size is the green coming into that 60 inch?
27 inch.
Oh, I see. Okay,
And
so
it
that's
bo-
restricted.
Yeah, it bores underneath I-94.
So what size is the tap that is at number 3, the yellow?
27 inch,
Okay, so 227s and a 54.
correct. In the 27 it bores underneath I-94 is not too small now.
Yeah.
But if it fully developed for the old master plan, it would have been undersized.
So based on future development, using the 100 gallons per
100 per capita per day,
Residents.
per person per day,
yeah, you're saying right now, with calculating the future expansion in each one of those 3 zones, the 54 and the 227s will be sized appropriately for that future expansion. So
Correct.
we would not have to figure out an alternate,
Yeah, Eagle has acknowledged that people are using 65 to 70 gallons per minute,
Yeah,
so.
so basically, they're resetting the baseline. So anything
Yeah.
as of, just say, July 1st, 2023, they're gonna take the revised 65 gallons per existing household, but from July 1st, 2023 future, you have to use 100 gallons, and that's how they're just letting you reset the baseline to.
Yeah, they're accepting what's
understand.
built and what's actually
Correct.
used. But
I
all
see.
future plans have to use
Yeah.
the old 100 gallons per capita per
So
day.
that takes care of the size of the taps, and does it allow us to eliminate any pump stations? How many pump stations are around the
There's
Chesterfield?
8 existing pump stations. There's probably 3 or 4 more that'll have to get built.
Okay, so we will still have to expand on pump stations then?
Yeah.
Just because of the remoteness of some of the locations probably? they just
Yeah, it's
can't-
remoteness and the township's pretty flat.
Yeah,
Sewers of gravity, eventually they
Yep.
get too deep, we want to lift them
Yeah,
back
of
up and
course.
get them down again.
gotcha. Okay, so 8 and then future of 3, but,
Yeah, probably 3 to 4 more.
okay. I just didn't know if we were able to eliminate any of them, but it sounds like we keep the 8 and then future expansion, once they get to those areas, they'll have to put a lift station.
Yeah, yeah.
And that lift station would be the cost of the township, correct?
Yeah, it'll be the township's, part of our public
Yeah.
system, and we'll operate and maintain it, just like we do all the other public sewers.
Got it.
And again, we want to keep the sewers 10 to 20 feet deep. That's kind of maintainable.
Yep.
If we start getting deeper than that, a lot of times we'll put a
Yeah.
lift station just
Pain
to
in the
lift it up
ass.
and, yeah.
I hear you. What's age of our 54 and our 27s?
Ooh, great question. The 54, which we just TV'd and cleaned this winter, that was put in around 2000.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, the problem is though, it's at a very low grade, and the sewer is actually moving too slow and it's starting
Yeah,
to go.
so
It's releasing
problem.
H2S, which is eating the concrete pipe. So we might have to do some remediation on that sewer.
yeah,
The 27-inch sewer, which runs from 21 Mile Road up to 25 and a half,
Yeah.
that's our sewer now. That also needs remediation. In fact, we'll be lining portions of that sewer this
Okay.
August. Yeah, you'll see in situ form out
Yeah,
there off
gotcha.
I-94 lining
Okay.
parts of that sewer.
no, makes sense. Yeah, appreciate it.
Good,
Thanks.
good.
Can I shut off now?
Any other questions by the board?
Yeah. Can I go a little off topic, or would I
Yeah,
be out
go
of line
ahead.
here? The township board did, and Mr. Demink knows this, approve sidewalks on Jefferson. They're being designed right now from Sutton, down Jefferson, and all the way up through the township property. Yeah, yeah. There is a sidewalk. Right, 3 different sections, we're gonna get funding for it. So the township board has initiated that project. We also do a sidewalk gap project every year, so the south side of 23 Mile Road, those sidewalks will be filled in from the township limits to Gratiot and then down to there's a bus station down
I
there.
think
So-
on Donna Road, there's only 3 or 4 houses that don't have sidewalks from Cotton to 23 Mile. And
Yeah.
that would be a good one to fill too.
Yeah, yeah, people do, people do like sidewalks. People like to walk around and use them. So there's 2 different programs. There's a replacement program where if you own sidewalks, the township, or we broke it up into 6 or 7 zones to remove and replace faulty sidewalks, and then the property owners are assessed. And then there's a separate program, which is the GAP program, which we're starting to prioritize areas, gaps that need to be built.
And those are both in the capital plan for the next,
Yeah,
I
they're-
think,
yeah.
seven years out we're at now.
Yeah.
Are there any plans to go south of Cotton Road? Like past 21 to take it to Selfridge?
Yeah, we do have an overall, and we do have an overall program that's being built by our consulting engineer,
There
Spalding
was,
Becker.
there was conversation years ago about connecting to the bike path over on the other side of Selfridge. So the challenge was to get from the south side over to the north side and connect the bike path, which, runs up Jefferson towards Lottie View. I mean, when they put the new Salt River Bridge in and added that sidewalk path there,
yeah.
that was
And
a wonderful thing to see.
Projects are more fundable when they do interconnect. SEMCOG and the state are more interested in funding projects like that, so we do kind of have an eye towards that. I know, and I don't know if this is still current, we were looking at putting a pedestrian bridge across I-94 at Cotton. Very expensive, and it's not gonna move ahead unless we get Yeah, it's a real
Cotton
challenge.
Road is a real challenge, but
Yeah.
I think there would be a, obviously, I live off of Jefferson, and I would love to take that ride, but not right now.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question for Mitch, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It may be a touchy subject, but can you give us an update of what's going on with the 26 Mile Road, the sewer getting out to 26 Mile Road? for
Yeah,
our-
yeah. The subdivision is being constructed right now. It was Clearview, now it's My Homes. That's being constructed right now at the corner of Baker and 25 Mile Road. They're gonna leave the sewer at the corner of their corner, the northeast corner of Baker and 25 Mile Road. We received bids today, actually, at 10 o'clock, to extend it north, east, north again, into the Ascension property line. That project will probably start in September, and it'll probably take a couple of months to get it up and running. And not surprisingly, the low bidder is the same guy who's doing the subdivision work. He had somewhat of an advantage because he's already mobilized. Ascension, I believe, is opening up soon. Yesterday? They opened, and they have their own treatment plant right on site. So they're treating their own sewage and they're pumping it along 26 Mile Road to County Line Road. When the sewer becomes available, they have 1 year to tie into the public sewer.
So the sewage from Ascension is going to flow through that new sub at the corner of Baker and
Yeah, yeah.
Washington.
Yep, and it flows all south. It gets down to 21 Mile Road to the 54-inch, and then it heads to I-94 to the
Because it
connection.
tied into Salt River Meadows, right in the corner of Salt River Meadows.
Yeah, John, if you could pull up the one with the blue map.
I didn't think it was that big.
How big a sewer is that, Mitch, that they're
It's
putting in?
18-inch that
Oh, it was
is
that
being
big. It was
installed. right?
18-inch, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so Piper's actually building the sewer north, and they're actually running it through their development so they can get service on both sides. But it's gonna end up at that manhole at Baker and 25 Mile Road. That all flows south, and then we received bids today to take it north, kind of along that line, up Baker, Hobart, up Burton, and then we're not going all the way to 26 Mile Road, we're saying about an eighth of a mile up 26 Mile Road. In the future, right away, I think it's 3/8 drive right away, that way we can get service on both sides of the sewer. It's out, and it's stopping at the Ascension property line. And the reason we're stopping, one of the main reasons, we actually ran out of grade. The pipe's coming out of the ground, so we're stopping it, which will cause another pump station in the future.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.
Now we need to make a motion, Jonathan, on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the township DPW system.
We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Miller. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner comments? Any comment? Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch.
Mr. Jaworski?
I'm good this evening, thank you.
Mr. Klinowski? Mr. Leonard?
I'm good, thanks.
Mr. LaBelle?
Do we have volunteers for pre-planning, the ones that were going to come tonight? They plan on coming next time?
I will be unavailable at the next meeting.
Okay, I'm looking for volunteers for pre-planning.
Rich and Mark?
What's on the agenda? I mean, can you tell us the agenda for it before the
One, I believe will be ready is gonna be the brewery. And then, we have a couple other, we have a couple other things in the pipeline, but I don't think they're gonna be ready for that meeting yet, so.
The easy ones we go to Mark. There you go, appreciate
Mr. LaBelle?
Also, I'm concerned about the township meeting with the cannabis vote. I think things are changing from what we had proposed, or what we propose. And I am personally going to be there to give a quick narrative of the reasons why we did what we did. If there's anybody else that's willing to join me, because I know that we're held to 3 minutes apiece, maybe each of us can take one segment or one piece of it and make a quick explanation as to why we did what we did. So anyways, if anybody wants to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Demink?
I'm good. I just want to thank you gentlemen for all your hard work that you do on this commission, and I think you guys do a great job, as I've stated before, and I will state that again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brokart?
I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Renault?
I'm all set for the evening, thank you.
Mr. Carr?
I was all set until Mr. LaBelle spoke. So besides my incredible irritation towards the board, and especially the comments by Mr. Joseph, what I don't understand is, if we complied with everything that's in the state regulation and laws based on cannabis and how cannabis can be managed within the state of Michigan, if we've complied with all those requirements, to me, I don't understand how that does not satisfy the 53% that voted to include that into our township. So I guess that's where I'm confused is, if the board does vote it down, I would really like to understand the basis of it, because it can't be because the 53% are all in the room whining and the other 47% is not. Because if you complied with all the requirements by the state, which are the minimum requirements, what did we not comply with? Well, so that's my point is, we had to listen to that for a half hour, and which made no sense at all. And so again, the cannabis is the next thing on the agenda, and I guess that's what I don't understand, is where that disconnect is. Between the board and between the planning commission, where that disconnect is.
Well, I can tell you because they're elected and they're dealing with people that are complaining that the setbacks are too far away, so it's gonna not have enough, it's not gonna allow for enough opportunities in the township for as many people that wanna come in.
But that's not how but opportunities.
No, I'm just saying that's where they're coming
and
from.
Tax revenue and revenue generation has nothing to do with planning and zoning and any of that within any of the planning and zoning laws in the United States, which unless I'm missing something. So again, that's where I'm struggling with understanding. I'm well aware that we only make recommendations, but again, for a functional body to really have a purpose, it has to be reinforced. I mean, that is the whole point of a recommending body. You have experts which are put on a zoning board and a planning board by law, and they make recommendations based on all the information and data and all the ordinances and the plans and everything that comes to within their periphery of what they can use based on the submissions that are coming in. Those recommended bodies are only as valued as the board, as the board is willing to support. I mean, because if it's just going to be a political thing, then in theory, legally they can't, but disband the zoning and planning commissions because they're really useless. Because at the end of the day, people like Mr. Joseph are just going to listen to whoever the loudest person in here and then just change his direction. And again, those are politically driven, like I said 2 weeks ago. They're not driven by the facts and the data. And that's the part that, to me is disheartening as a board member. I mean, I do this, when he talks and he's like, well, we have perfect, no, you don't. Last time I checked, most of you guys lived here longer than I have, but I've lived here 23 years. I'm only here because I'm a member of the community. I'm going to probably be here till I retire and much later, right? So I'm looking out for the best interests of my community and the best interest of me as a community member. I'm not here for the $100. I mean, so that to me is the disconnect. And to me, the board as the board, and the fact that your zoning and your planning commissions are based on people that really volunteer and are part of the citizens of that community, to me, they do owe you an explanation when they do trump you. Because they're really just they're literally trumping the people that elect them into those offices, right? And so to me, there's a disconnect, and that's why I don't run for political things, because I don't want to be bound by those things. But at the end of the day, our influence only comes by the board, and that's why the board should be reinforcing what their boards that they appoint, they should be reinforcing us, because that's literally what their job is. By trumping us, you're really disbanding, what we're here to do. That's my point.
Hey, can I chime in real quick on that?
Yes.
Thanks, Brian, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. First off, I was offended by the statements that were made here tonight. These setbacks were clearly stated in this meeting, in front of legal counsel, posted on the website. They were clear from day one. So there should have been no disconnect whatsoever between this committee and the board, okay? The second thing I was very offended by was his reference to a future potential thing that's coming before us, in stating his opinion before us on something that hasn't even been brought to us. So, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, if I can chime in.
Sure.
And I agree with both gentlemen, but from my point of view is there are individuals on that board that are influenced by others. And if we can have the opportunity to have them listen to us as to why we do things, rather than, because they don't know, unless they watch this meeting, they don't know what we talk about. They have no idea. Mr. Demink narrates, describes what we do, but they may not see the passion that we have toward one particular thing. And one thing is the 1,000-foot setback. The state of Michigan gives you a window of 1,000 feet to 300 feet, 300 feet to 1,000 feet. I believe that's what it is.
It just states a maximum of 1,000. You can't go
Maximum
above
number of
that, but you
1,000
can go
feet.
below it.
And if somebody's being influenced because they want to sell their building, and it's 900 feet away from a residence, we're going to possibly change what we've spent so much time doing. So that's my point, is I think that we need to come up with a better way of influencing the main board, the elected officials.
Yeah, and then there was talk about East Point and Roseville being only 50 feet, but those communities are old, and houses go right up to Gratiot, and they got commercial property that's maybe 200 feet deep, and then, the houses start, so there's no way that they can have the buffer like we can have out here. So we need to keep it at 1,000 feet.
And the reality of the situation is they're already developed. So they're developed, and in all honesty, I hate to say it because it's where I grew up and I love my childhood, but that's not the up-and-coming community. Right. That community is going downhill, just like Roseville is. I hate to say it, but that's just the reality of life, right? That's how urban expands. And so you cannot compare Chesterfield Township that still has potential growth for expansion with a landlocked 1 mile square East Point that is 100% maxed out. Right. Their zoning is done. Their developments are done. They're set in place. They're two totally different they're two totally different communities. So that's why you're not doing apples to apples with that comparison. So, but even if I was there, I wouldn't want it 50 feet. I mean, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Rich?
Rick, I'll be at that meeting with you. I don't know that there's anything we can present to the board that isn't already written down and voted on here. I don't feel the need to make a presentation. I'll be there because I want to see and learn what happens, but what are we going to present? we're gonna try to defend ourselves for what we've worked on. I don't wanna defend myself. The master plan, Mr. Joseph thinks it's up for interpretation. I don't. I read the words, I understand what it means. We talk about it as a group. We have legal counsel here, recommendations from Giffords Webster. We're doing our homework. I don't want to defend myself. If that's what it's going to take, we vote, we do our homework, we make the recommendation, and then we have to make a formal presentation. I'm against that. I'll be there, but I don't want to make a presentation to these people, these fine people who are elected.
Well, then what other way, or how can we close the disconnect between this board and?
There's no disconnect. Mr. Joseph said that Mr. Demink kept him well-informed. Mr. Demink is our trustee on this board. So if he's well-informed of everything we're doing, no presentation should be required. He should absolutely know what we've done. Any questions that he has during the process should be fed to us through Mr. Demink. And when Mr. Joseph says, you've done a nice job keeping me up, that's cool. I don't know, there's a different disconnect between us and them. It's a third party.
That's what Brian said, it's the loudest person in the crowd.
Right, well, we have loud people that come in front of us as
What
well.
I'm saying is but what you gotta remember is, again, that's why I wouldn't defend myself. That's why I didn't say anything to him. I just looked down because it's a waste of my time. I don't have to defend myself. That's not what we're here to do. I'm not on trial. I did my job. I did it to the best of my ability. At the end of the day, we're not going to be able to change anyone that's politically driven. I've worked on the boards with Mr. Joseph for, I think I've been on boards now 8 years, 3 years on zoning, and with the last 4 or 5 years on planning now. And with all due respect, I watched him change his position in the middle of meetings depending on how the crowd reacted. It's a fact, right? And that's not criticism, it's an observation. I'm an intelligent person. So anytime you're dealing with that, I'm not going to defend myself with that. At the end of the day, like he says, we are a recommending body. I think that from a township perspective, I think that they're doing the township a disservice by dismissing their boards. That's something they got to live with and they got to figure out. But I am not going to a board meeting to defend anything that I've done because that literally goes against, my principles. So, at the end of the day, I think if you want to be on the board, you keep doing what you can, and then they keep doing what they feel they got to do, and that's all we can do. And if it's too personal, you step away from the board when your appointment's up. That's how I look at it. That's the same decision. Just like when they re-interviewed me, I told them, I'm like, if I'm not the right guy, don't bring me back. Hurt my feelings. I think I do a good job for the community and I want to be part of it, but I'm not going to beg you to do it. Yeah, I'm not going to beg anyone for it. I'm like, if you think you can do, so I don't think, Mr. Bell, we should defend our position. I think all of our stuff's in the meeting minutes. I think that we all try to do the best we can with the skill sets we all bring. Everybody brings a little different skill set to it. And I think, are we perfect? No, but everything we do has a sound reasoning. They're not emotionally based decisions here. And they're all based on, again, the information that we have. That's really about it. To me, that's what you've done and that's what we do. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:05. Support. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault.